Welcome to the Brew Crew Review Podcast, the show by fans for fans of your Milwaukee Brewers.
All right, Brewer fans, welcome to the Brew Crew Review Podcast. My name is Craig. Joining me today is my co-host Vince. Vince, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Craig. And do we have Scotty and Chad on here today as well? I know that they were
and Chad are out on assignment, but we have
right.
the pleasure of having Scott's interns to help us out here. And they've just handed me this list of the Brewers, actually 22 draft picks this year, the 20 rounds of picks, and also their competitive balance pick.
Craig, I should just add really quick as we get started here. I just have to let our audience know, the folks who've been listening to us and following us and our show since 2004. I just wanted to let them know that this is, I believe, the first year during that entire period where you did not send angry text messages on draft day.
All right, not Sam. My anger management starting to pay off. So thank you, therapist. No, anyway, I'll leave you to guess whether or not I like the draft class or not until after this, but that might be a good hint on whether or not I do or not. So
sounds good. Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were like being silent in an attempt to actually control your emotions, or if it was just because you were actually pleased with the draft. I just haven't seen that before, so it was pretty exciting either way. But just wanted to share that with our fans.
All right, there's a little bit of both, I think. So anyway, the Brewers had the 18th overall pick in the first round, and I will note that I didn't mention this player as one of the picks, one of the players the Brewers could have been targeting around that point on the last podcast. So that was good. Brock Wilken, third baseman from Wake Forest, has got possibly the best power in the draft class. He was picked in the first round. We'll go over him in a little bit. Our competitive balance first round pick was Josh Noth, silent K, a right-handed pitcher from high school in New York, the state of New York. Second round pick, 54th overall, Mike Bouvet. It's a third baseman / second baseman from Omaha, Nebraska College. Then in the third round, we picked Eric Betonti, third baseman, shortstop from high school in California. I also mentioned him as possibly one of our competitive balance players we target, and he lasted all the way to the third round, so that was a great pick for the Brewers. Fourth round, Jason Woodward, right-handed pitching from Community College, Community Gulf Coast. The Brewers seem to love those community college pitchers. In fact, they picked another one. They popped another one in the fifth round. Ryan Britchard from Niagara County Community College, right-handed pitcher. Sixth round, we picked a player that fell quite a bit, and we gobbled him up, and that was Cooper Pratt, shortstop from high school in Mississippi. Seventh round, Tate Kuchner, a left-handed pitcher from Louisville. Eighth round, Craig Yoho, right-handed pitcher from Indiana. We can afford another Craig in Milwaukee. Why not? Ninth round, Mark Manfredi, left-handed pitcher, Dayton. 10th round, Morris Austin, right-handed pitcher, Houston Christian. Hey, from your neck of the woods there, Vince. 11th round, we've got Bishop Letson, right-handed pitcher from high school in Indiana. 12th round, we've got Bjorn Johnson, left-handed pitcher from high school in the state of Washington. 13th round, Brett Wichrowski, a right-handed pitcher from Bryant University. 14th round, Hayden Robinson, right-handed pitcher from LA High School. 15th round, back to position players finally, Josh Adamczewski, shortstop from Indiana High School. Josh Timmerman, right-handed pitcher from Ohio State. 17th round, Jacob Golston, right-handed pitcher from high school in Texas, Flower Mound. And 18th round, Dylan Watts, right-handed pitcher from Tacoma Community College. 19th round, Isaac Morton, right-handed pitcher from Minnesota High School. And our 20th pick, last pick of our draft classes here, Justin Chambers, left-handed pitcher from Arizona High School. So Now, there used to be many, many more rounds, and people, we'd rattle off quite a bit, but 20 rounds, nice and neat this year. Yeah, I know during the pandemic year 2020, I believe they reduced it even to just 5 rounds, but this 20 picks, it looks like the Brewers scooped up a lot of pitching, obviously, and most of their pitching, their position players, seem like they kind of target a lot of third base type prospects or possibilities. So I'll start by pointing out, you normally don't draft for need, but it sure seemed like they may have. And of course, you can never have too many arms. But all right, so I guess real quick, Brock Wilken. I really like the first round pick. Got a lot of power. Reminds me of kind of like Troy Glaus a little bit, where he's probably not going to have the greatest hit tool, but really massive, like legit MLB 35 to 40 homer power, and probably hitting between 240 and 260, but able to get on base. And just like Glaus, later in his career, he would probably slot over to first base. So he's a corner outfielder, but he does have a great arm and should start the minor leagues and hopefully the major leagues as a third baseman, which the Brewers definitely need. So our second pick, Josh Noth, seemed like a little bit of reach to me, but I think they might have tried to save some money on him. But he was really blowing up. He was really climbing up draft boards. So right-handed pitcher with some comp, kind of similar to Lance McCullers from the Astros, where he's undersized, right-hander, but really has some nice spin rates on his breaking pitches.
And always hurt.
Yeah, well, hopefully he doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Second rounder Mike Bouvet, very similar to a couple year draft pick Tyler Black, really good hit tool, but not much power. Doesn't strike out a ton. Really good contact hitter. A little bit of reach there, I believe. Not a huge fan of that pick. The third round pick, Eric Batanti, is a shortstop, third base prospect. I really like him quite a bit as a left-handed bat. Thought he was supposed to go a little bit higher, so I'm thinking the Brewers will. He's committed to Oregon, but I think the Brewers could use a little bit of savings to ink him, so to speak. So I'm really excited about that pick. And then I'll just point out that our 6th round pick, Cooper Pratt, was also someone that was projected to go in the top 100 picks, and we got him as 182nd overall. He's committed to Ole Miss and might be a real tough sign, probably the only real tough sign in this class. But I really feel that with the savings in the first couple of rounds, especially on our second and third pick of this draft, the Brewers should be able to sign him as well. So it's an exciting draft class, and he profiles also as a shortstop, possibly a third baseman going forward. So pretty exciting draft class. I'm pretty happy overall. Again, it's a little bit different than what this regime really goes, and not as many up the middle players as they're used to. And they usually really focus on shortstop and center fielders, and they kind of went a little bit more of the corner infield, third base route, especially toward the top of this draft, which I think was a little bit different. And I think that they finally identified that that they're gonna have to develop some players that can really hit in with power to fill the corner outfield positions from within going forward, rather than the dumpster bin, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think that kind of speaks to something we've talked about quite a bit on this podcast. It seems like the Brewers have never really settled in on a full-time above average first baseman since Prince Fielder left, at least not on a regular basis, with all due respect to, Rowdy Tellez, Dan Vogelbach, Chris Carter, Adam Lind, the list goes on and on. It just seems like we've never had real consistency there, or probably at third base either, since Aramis Ramirez left, with Travis Shaw being the closest thing to any sort of stability there for like a good season and a half. So I think that is correct, that you've identified kind of a new philosophy. And I guess my question for you and our listeners is, do you think that this is a byproduct of kind of a new direction that is being implemented top down from Matt Arnold, now that he is, officially the GM, and that David Stearns has clearly taken a bit of a step away from the organization at this point?
It's tough to say. I really think that there were a couple of third basemen that were really just the best players available when their first round pick came up. So in fact, we projected them to take the guy that went right after them. The Rays gobbled up. They're always awesome at drafting as well. I like the fact that we went with the guy with the more power here, because that's, again, something we just seem to be lacking throughout our system, so to speak. So whether or not, I still think they went the best player available in the first round, so to speak. Whether or not the other picks, yeah, it's tough to say, but like, I think they're straying away from, I think their old philosophy was like, well, let's grab as many shortstop prospects as we can, and if they don't work out at short or they can't stick there, we could always slide them over to different positions, second base or third base. But the problem with that is, so that's kind of what was happened with Louis Urias, who again, when we acquired him and traded our Trent Grisham in that deal for him and Lauer, I think envision him as our shortstop in the future, but then once we trade for Adames, we need to move him somewhere else. And he, then all of a sudden we had Trank coming up here and other options at second base. So ultimately, we kind of came in this season was like, oh, is Louis Arias our starting third baseman? First of all, his bat does not profile as a third baseman, in my opinion. Not enough power at all. With that being said, you can have different power from different positions, and we're getting a little bit from catcher now. But the bottom line is, really, he's been a bust now at this point. You can pretty much label him as that, and therefore, I think they were like, okay, well, we don't really have an internal third base candidate right now. I think we needed to maybe identify some like that. And I think they've grabbed a couple of guys that could be future third basemen for sure.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good identifying trait of this draft too. And you're right about Urias. I mean, certainly, I've always kind of viewed him as a platoon guy, but that's partially because the Brewers have never really settled in on one position. I do value roster flexibility, but I don't think that you should have an entire roster full of guys just because they play multi positions. I do think that there is some value in having guys that are, your set shortstop and your set third baseman. And I think that is good to mix and match with guys like Owen Miller or Louis Urias who can play multi positions. I think that is going to probably come down to one of I hate to use the word flaw, but one of the things that sort of the defining traits that kind of David Stearns will become known for or is known for, guys like Mike Moustakas playing second base and, just kind of guys playing out of normal places. And again, I like the creativity, but I also think there's some value to stability and having some sort of, anchors, especially at the corners.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's that same like philosophy they brought over from the Rays, both Stearns and Arnold at their time there. And you can see like how their roster has been composed. It's usually, these guys that can cover multiple position, and that kind of makes sense for depth, because then if you can really cover for an injury, but what you then don't have is like the correct middle order hitters, playing first and third base. Like you have lighter hitters in that, and your lineup's going to suffer overall. So even though your depth will be stronger, really the middle of your lineup is going to be a lot weaker. And that's what we're seeing now, especially with Christian Yelich now profiling more as a great leadoff hitter, rather than the middle of the order or even a number 3 hole hitter. Once we lost Braun and now he's out of that position, we really don't have a middle of the order type hitter right now. Adames is hitting second, and I mean, beyond that, you're not striking fear. I'm a true believer that if you're going to be a successful Major League Baseball team, you really need to have solid hitting on your 3 hole, your 4 hole, and your 5 hole, and including your leadoff hitter. And the Brewers are lacking in that, and so. I mean, I think that it is nice that they didn't necessarily draft any leadoff hitting profiles, because it seemed like they really liked that profile. You're talking about Sal Frelick as a leadoff hitting profile. You're talking about Garrett Mitchell has a leadoff profile. Christian Yelich is now pretty much a leadoff hitter, and so a lot of the guys that we already have in the system seem to be, even Bryce Trang you could throw up as more of a top of the order or bottom of the order hitter, not necessarily a middle order hitter. So. I think that this is something that we needed in the system. Obviously, Joey Weimer has enough power. He could probably be a future middle order hitter, but beyond that, he also has speed too. So he could, yeah. So, I mean, it's just like a philosophy thing, but I don't know that they're going to stray for it. I wouldn't be surprised if next draft they go back to tons of shortstops and center fielders in the draft once again. But this might have been one of these where like best player available in the first round, and then we'll see what we can do for the others. But I do like the fact that they, their 3rd round pick, Batonti, and also their 6th round pick, Cooper Pratt. These are guys that probably could have went, higher than what they did. And I think if the Brewers can sign them, this is going to look like a really strong draft in the long term.
Yeah, certainly seems to be that way. I got pretty excited just kind of seeing some of the people that do follow this a little closer than I do. I mean, quite frankly, it's hard to keep track of prep guys and major leagues and the minor leagues and all the different levels of baseball. So I do rely a lot on your analysis and Brandon's analysis and of course Scotty's. And so it's good though to hear good reviews for the Brewers overall in this draft. And I'll be interested to see if we can really look at it next year and kind of identify some trends again after a couple of years with Matt Arnold really running the draft room.
Yeah, and the draft, whether I like it or not, it's just all kind of opinion. And if anyone was watching MLB Network after the Brewers' third pick of Mike Bouvet, someone on the set asked him, so you wouldn't rank the Brewers draft thus far in the top 5 drafts? And he's like, absolutely not. So my guess is that he was really not liking the Brewers' first 3 picks collectively. And I can see that because the second and third picks were a bit of reaches, even though Wilkin was solid. He definitely, there's definitely detractors of this draft, and other teams I'm sure feel that they did a lot better. But I'm happy with it overall, and I think there'll be some good major leaguers to come out of this. So real quick, as we move on to the second half preview, real quick, the Brewers come into the All-Star break with they took 2 or 3 at home from the Reds. They're now just 1 game out of the NL Central lead. Couple of things, I guess I want to congratulate Corbin Burns for being named the All-Star team as a replacement for Spencer Strider. Fortunately, he did not get to play in the game. In fact, it's pretty sad. No Brewer got to play because Devin Williams also, who was chose not to participate or not to go to the game at all. So unfortunately, the Brewers were not represented in the All-Star game this year.
I think he did go to the game, Craig, just for the record. He was
Oh,
there.
yeah, no. Devin Williams.
Yeah, Devin Williams. He was working out with the team, and he was there.
Okay.
And he got some rave reviews on the red carpet during fashion, whatever they turned into a fashion show, I think, before the game.
But he was not available to pitch, so he had a replacement player.
For him.
Yep. All right, but looking back to last Saturday's Futures game, there were 3 Brewers in that game. Edgar Quero, the catching prospect, Jackson Trio, of course, our stud outfield prospect, and then the talk of the Futures game most possibly was our right-handed pitching prospect Jason Mizorowski, who struck out the side and threw, I think, like 7 of his, or at least 7 pitches over 100 miles an hour in that inning he pitched. And people are saying that his stuff is just nasty. And if he can learn to control it here in the minor leagues, you're really looking at a top of the rotation starter potential out of Jacob Mizorowski. So that's a pretty exciting thing.
Yeah, it is. Our colleague Curtis Hogg from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel did write up a little bit about him maybe a month or 6 weeks or so ago, and really interesting article. And he did a great job of kind of highlighting his repertoire and what he's working on right now in the minor leagues. And I do think that there's going to be some questions going forward whether or not he's going to be a starter or maybe a future closer. A lot of the same debates that were had about Josh Hader, I think, could be had about him as well. So but certainly it's exciting. We've got a live arm like that in our minor league system, and the Brewers do continue to churn out some pretty good pitching from our system, unlike in years past. So that is an exciting trend that hopefully we see continue.
I know our inside source TC says that he thinks that Mizorowski will stay a starter and reach a ceiling of at least a number 2 starter, if not an ace. So,
that's great news from Tom Carter. That's awesome. And when you say TC, I know that you're talking about Tom, so that's awesome. And thank you to Tom for that.
We do appreciate his and our listeners, of course, do appreciate his inside information, which is always usually spot on. However, as you noticed, I said TC. That's he doesn't want to be. He doesn't want to be revealed as a source. So please refrain from using his full name, either his first or his last, in any combination or form. He actually sent an email that seemed like kind of a pretty direct that we stopped doing that. So we'll see.
I did get that email. It was from Tom Carter at yahoo.com or whatever. But I did get that. So sorry about that, Tom. And our interns can edit this out, or Scotty's interns can.
Yeah. So overall, it was a really cool all-star break and exciting. And I'm starting to get warm up to the fact that they have the draft interspliced within it too. But really fun time. And here we are about to kick out the second half. We're taping this on Thursday, the 16th of July. I'm kind of surprised there's no, I thought they used to kick off games starting on a Thursday right after All-Star break, but not this year. So I'm a little bit.
No, not for the last couple of years. That was part of the last, I think the latest CBA actually, Craig,
Oh, okay.
To give the players an additional off day. I believe that was one of the concessions that ownership made to the players union because they wanted a 4-day break. And, to be fair, it's a long season. It's 162 games. And you do have guys that are trying to get to their homes, for at least a couple days if they're not going to the All-Star game. And even All-Stars who have to go out to Seattle, in this case, for 2 days, they may still want to have 2 full days off. So I think this was an opportunity to try to get the players an extra day with their families during the season.
That makes perfect sense. And yeah, that way the all-stars themselves can get home to see their family for a day or two before they head back out to the big weekend series to kick off the second half.
Yep.
It's a big one here for the Brewers coming up in July. We're starting with a 3-game set here in Cincinnati. So it's kind of strange because we just ended with a three-game set back at in AmFam Field last weekend against the Reds, and they're going to kick off the second half in Cincinnati with a 3-game set. So coming up here, and it's going to be a tough July, but I think we're going to really show our true colors here. We've got 6 games, both home and away, 3 home and away against the Reds still coming up this month. And then also the Braves. We got 3-game set with the Phillies coming up. So it's going to be a tough month of July to finish up here. And I think the Brewers really need to step up here and keep themselves in this race as we head into the trade deadline. Envisioning the Brewers, battling it out for the division all the way up to the last week of the year, what do you feel has to happen in the second half for the Brewers to win the NL Central?
I mean, to me, it's very clear. I think we need to be aggressive at the deadline and get a bat. I'm not confident that we will, but I think our offense still needs another bat, at least another bat, and I think that our bullpen needs another arm. So my hope is that the front office has woken up to the sins of years past, so to speak, and they understand that we do need to be aggressive at the deadline and to be more proactive in filling some gaps on a roster that has the potential to make some noise, but is missing some key components. And I certainly prefer that than selling at this point. So that's my hope. As far as with the guys that we've got, I think that we need Corbin Burns to continue to step up. He started the year off a little bit slowly, I think, but as you can see by his All-Star selection, he certainly has started to turn things around and start to pitch at least somewhat like the Corbin of old. I love seeing both him and Christian Yelich have the success that they've had, and I'm hoping that their success continues. And I think that obviously reintroducing Brandon Woodruff into the rotation is going to be great. If we can get a couple guys healthy, I'm not as worried about the starting rotation. If we can get Wade Miley and Brandon Woodruff coming back healthy, I don't think we can rely on Ashby for anything this season at this point. But I do think that again, Woodruff and Miley being healthy is going to be a huge plus. And the real wild card in the rotation to me is Freddie Peralta, who's had a disappointing to me first half. But if he can pitch like the Freddie of old, which I think he's fully capable of, I think that would be huge. So that's kind of my hopes, along with the hopeful deadline acquisitions.
Yeah, those are some great points. I agree that I think the keys to the second half are, first and foremost, getting Brandon Woodruff healthy and back in the rotation. Number 2, I think we not only have to add one bat at the trade deadline, we probably have to add, in my opinion, 2 or 3 to fix this lineup. With that being said, I want to give kudos to Christian Yelich, who's been one of the hottest hitters in baseball for over the last 6 weeks leading up to All-Star break, and it really looks like he, is Christian almost of old with a little bit less power, which is awesome. And Willie Adames, who started off pretty slow throughout the course of the season, has really been turning it up over the last couple of weeks too. We definitely need those 2 guys as pretty much our 2 best hitters, and I think we need to add some pop to the middle of our lineup. And at the trade deadline, I'm hoping we can do that. And then really reevaluate guys that aren't hitting well. Like I know Rowdy Tellez, unfortunately, on the IL right now, but I mean, he's really showing himself to be possibly only on platoon first baseman right now. And also Jesse Winker, who's turned it up a little bit here of late, still I think could be upgraded, so to speak. So we'll see. And also I think that we do need, along with the trade deadline of the hitters, I think we need to add at least one good bullpen arm. I know that we just straight release Matt Bush, who signed back on with the Rangers on minor league deal, but Payamps has been awesome. But I mean, besides basically Williams, who's the All-Star Williams and Payamps, I'm a little bit concerned with the rest of our bullpen. Some of the guys have been, we've been rotating guys out, but I think that'll be huge. So I think to me, those are the keys to the second half. And I do believe the Brewers will stay in it all the way to the end. And therefore, there's no reason, nothing can really happen in the next 3 weeks between now and the August, I think, first deadline, trade deadline for us to be that far out of first place, I believe, to switch to selling mode. So I think we need to be all in and try to make the playoffs by winning the NL Central this year. And I should also point out that I think that there's still we're right in the mix for the if indeed we even were to fall a game or two short of the NL Central, I think we're still in the mix of teams for the wild card too. None of the other divisions are really pulling away. I know, the Mets have had a terrible season. The Padres have had a terrible season, so they've almost taken themselves out of contention. The Cardinals, of course, have had a terrible season. So you might have saw this, but the Cardinals GM actually said when asked what they're going to be doing at the trade deadline, he said that they're going to be focusing on the 2024 team. I think you can stick a fork in the Cardinals for this year.
Well, I was about to bring that up. I know we talked about it briefly in our pre-production meeting, but John Mozeliak has said flat out that they're going to be sellers at the deadline this year. I don't think that that's going to change with 4 teams ahead of them right now in the division, including the Pirates and the Cubs. So that's good news for the Brewers. I think the 2 teams kind of strike me as teams to watch at this point, outside of the Mets, but the Padres and the White Sox. I think both of those teams have a lot of interesting pieces. We've seen AJ Preller be hyper aggressive at past deadlines in terms of acquiring players. I'm wondering if he might just be equally as aggressive in moving players for pieces that might help them more in future years, just given his track record. So that could be an interesting team to watch. The White Sox obviously started incredibly slow in April. They haven't really recovered. I think they played about 500 since then. So they are probably out of the playoff picture, even in a weak American League Central. And I think that will be another interesting team to watch. So I'm kind of focused on those 2 teams at this point.
Yeah, they've had some pieces that we could use, including from their bullpen. We could use Josh Hader back. That'd be nice. Maybe a lesser cost.
That's for sure. Maybe we need to sign Dinelson Lamet and trade him back. That sounds good.
Something like that. Well, anyway, it'll be exciting, and we'll have some more podcasts before the trade deadline for some more speculation.
Yeah,
players available. But so make sure.
And Craig, I did want to ask really quick. We did. Sorry to interrupt, but I did want to ask and make sure we got to it. We put out a question Scotty's interns put out a question on social media yesterday. Love to get your response really quick. Who would you say is the Brewers team MVP of the first half?
All right.
You can only name one, but it can be a pitcher or a position player. It doesn't matter.
Are you asking me to pick or to go to the poll and choose?
Yeah. Well, we already put it out there, so I'm just curious who you pick unless you looked at it, but yeah.
Believe it or not, I'm going to go with Christian Yelich.
That's exactly what the fans said as well. It was over 80%. So yeah, Christian Yelich by far got the nod. A couple votes for Contreras, a couple more votes for Devin Williams. I think Williams was second place, and Wade Miley received a couple votes, and Julio Teheran received, I think, one or 2 votes as well. But Christian Yelich definitely far and away won it.
Yeah, and Wade Miley, he's probably been the most unsung hero of the year. He's when he's been out there, he's been a magician on the mound. So kudos to that guy.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, listeners. Remember, join us or check us out on Twitter and all that stuff.
Yeah, Brew Review 1 on Twitter, and continue to send us your questions. I know we've got a bunch to get to, and Scott is going through those. Brew Review Podcasts with an S@gmail.com. We will get to those on our next show, hopefully.
All right. Well, stay classy, West Dallas, and go Brewers.
Stay classy. Go Brewers. Go Brewers. Do, 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 do.